I want to talk a bit about what it's like to grow up in a country different from the one that your parents were born in. Um, I was born in Australia, but my parents are from America, Wyoming and Indiana. And they moved out to Australia when they were 19 and 25, and then got married out there. About 10 years later, I was born. So I was raised in Australia, um, and visited America 3 times as a child and teenager, um, with my mum, and the first trip also included my dad. So it was before my parents separated, and most of my life I've pretty much identified as Australian rather than Australian and American, despite the fact that I am a dual national. It's only really when I've visited America, when I was a lot more wanting to spend more time in America, because that's where my family was, and it was a lot easier for me to get along with my cousins and aunts and uncles and that sort of thing, just from family familiarity, even though I didn't see them very often, than it was for me to make friends in Australia. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I'm quite a shy kid, but aside from that, I'm not really sure what the reason for that was. But I still, for the most part, growing up in Australia, I identified mostly as Australian. But these days, it's kind of turned around a bit in terms of since moving to Malaysia, and so I've been here for about 4 years, and having a lot of friends online who are from America. I find myself talking probably a lot more about American politics and that sort of thing, rather than what's going on in Australia. Um, and I'm not sure if that's just because they're more, my friends are more familiar with what's going on in America than what's going on in Australia. So I do still have a lot of friends in Australia as well, but we never really discuss that sort of thing, I guess. And I think that maybe also a lot of my Australian friends aren't as keen on Australia culture as what I have tended to be in the past. Like, I still am quite a fan of a lot of Australian TV drama and comedies and comedians and that sort of thing, but it's sort of a bit harder to access that sort of thing when you're living in Malaysia and still want to be able um, to to connect with the Australian culture. Whereas when there's a lot more access to American movies and TV shows and that sort of thing here, um, because that's what gets imported, I guess. I mean, that's what gets imported all over the world. So it's a little bit disappointing in some senses that I can't connect with the Australian side as well as I can the American side from Malaysia. Um, but I've also realised that I'm now kind of doing the same thing with my children. We're living in Malaysia, um, and my kids are growing up in a country that's not the one that their parents are from. And I don't know if the same sorts of things are going to be passed on to my children, with the um, lack of identity, national identity. I don't really identify as one nationality anymore. I don't really understand such such close ties to any one country, because I am a dual national. um, and I mean, I like um, being someone with two citizenships, but at the same time, it is also hard to um, find people who completely relate to what that's like. I'm a world traveller. I'm someone who likes to see what things are like in different countries and find the best bits from all over the world and I don't know, it kind of shapes my worldview, I guess, but it does make it harder to understand the difficulties that some people go through in different countries. Um, yeah, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens with my children and what they connect with when they're growing up, because we are probably not going to stay in Malaysia forever, but I don't know what's next for us. We're looking at hopefully going off to the United States at some point, but I don't know when that is, and I don't know if that shapes my opinion of following American politics and stuff a little bit more than Australian things. But I do also follow what's going on in Australia. Like, I've been proud of the fact that Australia at least has discussed marriage equality, even though they didn't pass those bills recently. Um, and I was very proud of the fact that Julia Gillard, um, you know, said all of that big speech that she did to Parliament, and particularly targeted Tony Abbott in that. Um, I think that's something that needed to be said. But I do, I followed what's going on with the American election a lot more closely. I've been watching the debates online and been happy that I've had the opportunity to do that online. Whereas, it's harder to do that with some things. And, it's, yeah, so it's interesting that, it would be nice to find more people that understand what it's like to be familiar with different countries like that and identify as being a national of different countries as well. And I don't really have a lot of that. And I think maybe sometimes it makes it harder for me to make friends because it's not so much of the national identity that I relate to. But on the other hand, when we've had Australian comedians out here, I've jumped on the fact that, hey, I'm an Australian, I'm living in Malaysia, hello. And I don't know, it's interesting, I guess. Anyway, that was something that I thought would be interesting to talk about, so I hope you enjoyed my perspective.